But she started to show me in a personal kind of way. Oh, oh, yes she did. People now, the girl has got it together. I said the girl done got it together, yeah. The girl done got it together for me. And that's how it's gonna stay. Let me say the girl got it together. I said the girl got it together. I said the girl done got it together for me. And that's how it's gonna stay. Oh, 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 now. She turned me inside out with the kind of love you just can't hardly find. She got the kind of love and make the king bow down and a poor boy lose his mind. Oh, yeah. Let me tell you that the girl has got it together. I said the girl has got it together. Yes, she does. She done got it together with me. And that's how it's gonna stay. I said the girl done got it together. The girl got it together. The girl done got it together with me. And that's how it's gonna, that's how it's gonna, that's how it's gonna stay. Well, listen to me every night, every day. I got some good, sweet loving coming my way. That's how it's gonna, that's how it's gonna, that's how it's gonna stay. Yeah, the girl got it together. I said the girl done got it together. Oh, she done got it together with me. And that's how it's gonna stay. Wow, got it together. I said the girl done got it together. The girl done got it together with me. And that's how it's
Okay, welcome to the Opperman Report. I'm your host, Private Investigator Ed Opperman. And if you need a private investigator, you can get a hold of Opperman Investigations and Strategic Solutions. At my email, oppermaninvestigations@gmail.com. Then also, too, you need to get a hold of me about the radio show, oppermanreport@gmail.com. Got a lot going on. Set up the new company for a big project I'm working on, so I got help. I have help down there, help me out now, working down here, getting paid. And so what we're doing is we're making a lot of changes to the podcast. We're moving from Spreaker. We moved over to another platform. I'm not crazy about it. We may be making a second move. We may be turning into gypsies on the road, the wandering Opperman Report to different platforms. But I just had it enough with Spreaker. I couldn't take them anymore. And having a lot of problems. We're moving the show over, too. They're giving us a lot of problems, man. For with them 14 freaking years, you'd think they'd have some respect. But nope. May have to take some action there. So got some help now helping me out, though, with all these big projects we're working on. And so one of the plans, probably this week, we'll have the live show next week, maybe live again, and maybe with video on Patreon. We'll have a live show on Patreon, and then with video, and then we'll play it right afterwards with audio, just for the losers out there that aren't members of Patreon. The deadbeats and the freeloaders. Okay, we'll have it for them. I'm so tired. Because right now we have no ad revenue, zero, except for YouTube and Patreon. That's all we got. We have no ad revenue coming in. We're not approved for ads anywhere, so it's kind of a hassle. But we're not gonna hold out a few months. We'll see what happens. But plus, I set up the new Opperman Investigations and Strategic Solutions for a project that I'm working on there that I am getting paid on for PI work. So we have that going on. And I was able to hire some help to come in, and now we're working on many, 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 many different things, getting a lot of work done. I'm very proud of what we're doing here. So, otherwise, if you need to like our show, you can check out Patreon, the Opperman Report Patreon. Now, the past month or so, I've been I've been brushing over the Patreon part because I haven't been put up much stuff in Patreon. But I got to show up there right now with Craig Gibson. Well, what's her name? We did a great show last week. Let me find this woman here. I might have it over here. I just put down Jen folder, but I have it over here. Craig Gibson. Kate Gibson. Everyone freaks out because I can't get the names right, but that comes from my old smuggling days, man. You don't want to remember people's names in case the cops get you in that question. You don't want to remember people's real names. Okay, I would hear a name, I'd forget it. Okay, I remember the guy. We'd give him nicknames. My old nightclub days. But Kate Gibson is this, she's up there in Patreon right now, and her story is, she's a political activist down there and political agitator or influencer type down there. But on her own, she's a freelancer. I talked to her off the air. Down there in Texas, going after Ronnie Jackson and the guy running for Scott, governor and stuff like that. And they actually put together a folder on her with her picture and a little background on her. And everybody else in the folder is like a whole bunch of criminals who are doing mugshots and stuff. And to keep her out of events. Okay, they called it a fundraising event. There was like a private event, but they kept her out, and she stumbled on this folder. A supporter of hers got their mitts on this folder and sent it to her. So we talk about that and the background of, I worked on political campaigns too. And they have these people called trackers, an opposition research, and you send these trackers, usually young kids, interns and stuff like that. You send them into the opposition campaign to see if there's any gaffes or statements that are being made by the candidate that you can use against them. But she's not doing that. I think that's fair game to have a picture of people you suspect as being trackers and keep them out. But she's not that at all. She's just a regular advocate and a constituent trying to have communications with their representative. And that is one of the things we get into this complaint too, because like when I tried to call Ted Lieu, like I didn't have time to make the arrangements. Hey, who knows Ted Lieu? Give me Ted Lieu's private number. His chief of staff, all that kind of stuff. I just picked up the phone, called his office, and there's no hope, man. You're dealing with some intern, and they're just bored and not, they don't understand the significance of what my phone call was about. So Ted Lieu wound up getting his face on the New York Post. How Ted Lieu messed up. I tried to warn him, tried to call him up, but he doesn't want to listen to Ed Opperman. He's got to face the consequences. Patreon. So we got this Kate Gibson, Dave Emery. I'm taping with Dave Emery tomorrow about some Katie Johnson, Jeffrey Epstein stuff, Jane Doe 4. All that kind of stuff. I got the questions, came over today, and it's a lot of stuff. Plus, I have stuff that I've been saying. I go in there once a month, and I'm his Epstein guy. So I go on there now once a month. He has me on there. It keeps me on for like 2 hours, sometimes 3 hours, man. We got to have a talk with him. So I'm going in there tomorrow, so that'll be up on Patreon right away. I'm taping tomorrow with Ellie Leonard, who's working on the front lines with this Jane Doe 4, the Hilton Head 13-year-old who was raped by Trump and Epstein. And she actually got a settlement from the Epstein estate. So that's a big story there. And Ellie Leonard's been at the forefront of confirming and verifying and identifying this Jane Doe 4. Now, her real identity has leaked. It's out on the internet. People are sharing it around. If you see that, you should report it because we don't want any kind of harm coming to these people. Threats or harm. Now, there's also, we're going to be talking, too, about this whole big, I might call it a brouhaha. Okay? To quote Kramer from Seinfeld series there, is that, what do you call it? These were leaked handwritten notes, okay? And I saw them and I shared them. It turns out that they may not be legit. Okay, and Ellie Leonard's on the hunt for that to verify or prove what's going on there. So we'll be taping with her tomorrow. That will be on Patreon this week. Richard Kerr. Remember Richard Kerr? Okay. I just taped an hour and a half with another guest about Trump and bankruptcies and Taj Mahal and Wilbur Ross and Roy Cohn and all that stuff. But by coincidence, I got an email from Richard Kerr. Remember, I was one of the first guys to have Richard Kerr on the radio. He is one of the survivors of the Kincora home for boys in Ireland. Now, one of the interesting things he tells me, and I don't remember if he told me before. By the way, this is the best interview I've done with Richard Kerr. We get the most out of him. He's nice and calm. He's not all frazzled and upset. We got good stuff out of him. We haven't, okay. Richard Kerr, he's back with new exclusive details he could not talk about before because there was litigation. He just settled his litigation. For peanuts, he got peanuts on the deal. But still, he has the right. He hasn't signed an NDA. He has a right to talk about it. So he's the fellow that was sex trafficked by Roy Cohen over there in Ireland, taken around Europe, and all kind of interesting stuff there with Richard Kerr. He's back. That'll be up in Patreon this week, and with all brand new behind-the-scenes details we haven't heard before. Sorry about that, Dave Emery. Okay, today I just finished taping 5 minutes ago, and this is like an all-day thing. Jessica the banker. I know her real name. I know who she is. I checked her out. Now, she worked for the company that handled the junk bonds and the loans and the bankruptcy deal with Donald Trump. So we get into all the behind-the-scenes discussions about Deutsche Bank and money laundering and suspicious plane crashes and helicopter crashes around these casino deals. The whole story about Trump's father and buying the $4 million worth of chips for cash. A lot of things we talked about with David K. Johnson. We talked about this young woman here. We get into all stuff. One thing I learned brand new is that they forced the people she worked for, the bank she worked for, the funding company she worked for, that took over and forced Trump, says, hey, man, you can keep your name on the door, but from now on, you are Fredo Corleone. You're not allowed to touch or run anything in these casinos that have your name on them. She was part of all those deals, the deals with Merv Griffin, all that stuff. And of course, I told her the funny story about how my girlfriend's brother was roommates with Denny Terrio, who was sexually harassed by Merv Griffin. We get into a lot of side stuff. But one of the things I learned was that deal is what caused Trump to sell the Plaza Hotel in Manhattan. The Plaza Hotel, Trump had to be proud to own the Plaza Hotel during that period of time. Because it was a crown jewel in Manhattan as it overlooks Central Park. It's a beautiful hotel. And it's up there right there with the Waldorf, which I was more of a Waldorf guy than the Plaza. But I stayed at the Plaza, too. It's a beautiful place. It's like, $600 to $500 a night back in the 80s. Which is like nothing now. But back in those days, it was a lot. Like the presidential suite would be like $800. I think the presidential suite at the Waldorf back in those days in the 80s when I used to go there was like $1,000 a night. $800, $900, $1,000 a night. But during the period of time that Donald Trump owned the Plaza Hotel, and I've just talked about this a bit in the past, when I had the guests on from Scores and different people I've talked about, they had a floor that you could only get to that floor with a special key. You had to be a member to get on that floor. And there was all kind of escort services and going on that floor, all kind of shenanigans going there. All the girls at Scores were up there every night. Let's put it that way. Okay, they would hang out with guys who had keys to that floor at the Plaza Hotel. Trump was forced to sell the Plaza Hotel. I always wondered why. Because I knew what was going on there. And it turns out it was because of this deal with the casino and stuff like that, with this bankruptcy deal. So really good information there. You're not going to hear anywhere else. This guest has never been interviewed before. Once again, Ed Opperman brings you early, ad-free, and people that no one ever heard before. Years and years and years and years and years ahead of everybody else. Oh, Jess Michaels. What's playing tonight after this interview here is another Super Gold. We got this great thing here, Jessica the Banker. We got Richard Kerr with, what do you call it? The story with Roy Cohen and Concura School Home for Boys. By the way, another thing we learned from Richard Kerr is that the Concura Home for Boys was 3 blocks away from like the prime minister, where the parliament was in Ireland, So this was like right there. There was a child trafficking operation there right in the heart of the seat of government in Northern Ireland. So we get into a lot of that, okay? So goal this week. We got Dave Emery, the Trump bankruptcy, Jessica the Banker, Jess Michaels, okay? JessMichaelsSpeaks.com. She's a survivor of Jeffrey Epstein. You're going to have 2 hours with her tonight, okay? I don't think she's ever done a 2-hour interview before, okay? And we get into all her stuff. Let me tell you something with this woman, Jess Michaels. We spent quite a bit of time off the air because she had questions for me about some information she had. She knows who I am. She knows what I do. And she has some questions we're looking into. I looked into them. Off the air, we talked for a good 45 minutes, okay? Which is a lot of time for me. You know, if you know anybody, you know, gets on the phone with me, you know, they start all that stuff. Hey, Ed, how you been? Oh, how's your daughter? Okay. So what do you need? At this point, I don't even say, well, how are you? People know they're not going to get that from me anymore. Okay. By the way, don't call me, don't text me or call me before 9 a.m. or after like 7 p.m. Okay. None of these 11 o'clock texts. If you have my personal cell phone number, okay, that you're allowed to, I give you my number, you can text me. Don't go texting me at 6:30 in the morning. Okay. There's no reason for that. You got my email address. You need me at 6:30 in the morning, send me an email. I'll look at it when I wake up. I don't want to be lying in bed and getting some text from somebody. It's really not that important, people. Okay. So give me a break there, guys. Okay. I'm doing as much as I can. Okay. And I got to have my own agenda and my own schedule and do things at my pace and my direction. I don't be dragged here and there and doing things for other people for free. But what were we talking about? Jess Michaels. Okay, so she gets me on the phone for 45. By the way, I wasn't screaming about Jess Michaels. She's been cool. But we've been on the phone for like 45 minutes, and the sincerity, okay, from this woman, okay, because there's a lot of shenanigans. You know, you hear me coming on the air all the time, and I talk about how the Epstein story is controlled by the Epstein people. Jess Michaels, JessMichaelsSpeaks.com is not one of those people. She is legit. She's sincere. Just a little chatting off the air, a little gossip here and there. You talk about this and that. It's so, man, breath of fresh air to talk to this woman. And then to get her on the show and to talk about stuff with her, too, you know, where we're agreeing with the same stuff, man. We know we got the same gossip about the same people. We know the same lawyers, the same reporters. We know. You know, man, it is such a breath of fresh air to talk to somebody. Especially about this topic, because I always talk about how the story is controlled by the Epstein people. She agrees. When I mentioned some names, and I didn't mention all the names, but I bet if I did, I couldn't do it on the air, but I bet if I did, she would agree. I always mention how this story is controlled by the Epstein people, okay? And it 100% is. So to have, and you know, when you talk to some of these people, coming on the show, guests, they're experts on this. They're legendary experts on this. And, you know, you're talking to them, and they're not mentioning mutual friends and mutual lawyers. They don't know any of their stuff. They're out of the loop, man. They don't know what they're Googling their information. So Jess Michaels, man, she's definitely in the loop. She knows what's going on. The reason why it was so important to get her on the air this week is because she was fighting against Todd Blanche getting nominated there to getting confirmed, which he was confirmed despite all of her efforts. She was in the room with Todd Blanche. We go in, we describe step by step what went on there when her and the other survivors, 10 other survivors, confronted Todd Blanche and the Department of Justice. We get into all of that. And you're not going to get this anywhere else, man, because how often do you have somebody who's a legit survivor, legit settlement, been through the process, lobbying Congress on her own dime, too. We get into this whole thing about how she does all this on her own dime. She's not getting any support or any funding from anybody. Okay? We get into all of that, man. And also an investigator who's really involved in all this stuff, knows all the people, worked on cases, been behind the scenes. My clients, you know, testified. My clients received settlements. You know, legit. You know, how often do you get that in this space? People like to call it in this space. You know, they love to use that word. But how often do you get that, man? It's usually this bullshit, man. You know, I see some of these people, they prop them up, man. They don't know crap about what's going on. You know, no connection to anything whatsoever, just what they're Googling. So that's tonight. I got you 2 hours, man. Okay, and when I ambushed her, I made her go 2 hours. I just kept going. I used to do that in the old days, man. I rarely do it now, only when it's really good stuff. So I'm really proud of the work I got out there for you right now, guys. I'm you know me, and plus I'm getting so much done off the air and my private work and my activism and things I'm doing. Very, very, very good time. Okay, so we got Dave Emery. Just the banker about Trump's bankruptcy. There's stuff in there you're not going to hear anywhere else. Okay, I told you about the part about the Plaza Hotel, but there's other stuff in there too about the helicopter crash. I thought it was a plane crash with the Trump executives from the casino, Deutsche Bank money laundering, the Letitia James, corruption fraud trial in New York, and a lot of stuff we get into. Okay, Richard Kerr, Ellie Leonard coming back about Jane Doe 4, and then the stuff. I kind of made a mistake booking a guest. I thought there was somebody else. I made a mistake. I don't know if I'm going to go ahead with it or not. Working on a guy. I got a guy. Okay. Who's got inside information about TPUSA, the Charlie Kirk organization that Erica Kirk is running now, and about some of the tactics they use involving homosexuality behind the scenes. There's a lot of TPUSA people that are closeted homosexuals, and they seem to be using that as a tactic, as an advantage to what they're doing. And I even, I wrote a post about how it's possible that this whole Candace Owens and Andrew Wilson is back and forth. This could all be an operation. All this stuff could be that the Candace Owens is being used as the disinfo. You know what I mean? A limited hangout. They like to call it that kind of stuff. And, it's funny. People who use these expressions usually have no connection to any of this kind of stuff. These people call it, that's Fed slop. They never dealt with a Fed in their life. They never been under investigation themselves. They've never worked on a criminal defense. But they're experts. The farther away you get from something, the more of an expert you get in 2026. A couple of things I want to get into, because in my conversation with Jess Michaels and someone else recently, I'll often, when we're talking about survivors from Epstein or something like that, or these other cases, maybe Weinstein, Harvey Weinstein, or Paolo Zampoli. We had the woman that he raped on the show. When I'm discussing these things, a lot of times I'll talk about the plaintiffs in these cases, the women in these cases that have been battered and been abused and traumatized. And I'll use the word that they've been damaged. Okay? And every now and then, I'll have somebody contact me screaming at me, but you can't say people are thinking that I'm saying that they're damaged goods, or that they after coming through that trauma that they're less a valuable person or less a respectable person, that that they're damaged. I'm talking about damages, okay, which is a legal term. That when you've been traumatized, when you've been harmed, when you've been damaged, there are damages. You can recover damages, which is compensation for your damages. Like if your house was damaged by a tree falls in your house, you recover those damages. If your reputation is harmed or damaged, defamation, you recover damage. How have I been damaged? Well, I had a contract I was about to get. I lost a job. I lost a business opportunity. These are my damages, my financial damages. So when I say that a survivor thing has been damaged, I'm talking about their financial damages, that they deserve compensation. I'm not judging them or in any possible way. It's just an expression that you use in litigation. So I need to get a little. You guys got to cut me some slack on these things. If you don't understand my terminology all the time, it's not me. God, I'm turning into an angry guy. Okay. The other thing too is I want to head up. I got into a beef last night with Lisa Peace, who's the RFK expert. She's going to be testifying there in front of Anna Paulina Luna's hearings here in Florida. And she wrote this thing about how podcasters should not be allowed. They should not interview people who promote the organized crime motives or involvement in the JFK assassinations. And, you shouldn't do it. You shouldn't put these people on the air because it's an opinion that differs with hers, or it's a conclusion that differs with hers. And as polite as can be, I says, well, how would people know, not to trust these? If we couldn't hear what they had to say, how would you know? And, she goes on to say, well, the host should vet out their guests and do the research and then only put on people, or get on the phone, put them on the air and start arguing with them, and debating with them, which, that's just clearly not my bring them on the show, take their statement, what do they got to say? I'm not going to spoon feed you on what to believe or what not to believe. I give you guys a lot of gold, and it goes way over people's heads, but that's not my problem, man. You know, if you're not savvy enough to pick up what I'm putting down, that's, you know, who cares what you know or what you think or what you're concluding? You know what I mean? You know, then there's no purpose in spoon feeding you to agree with everything I conclude or everything I believe. You know, that doesn't work either. You know, so who are we going to appoint to vet out and censor all these guests and these topics? You know, who I think Lisa Peace wants to appoint her. I think. Okay. Oh, God. And she got very rude and insulting with me again, you know, which is why I never invited her back on the show after the 2 times she appeared years ago, like over 10 years ago. But God bless her. I had another issue with her, too, where I wanted to present her. I had these immigration reports about Sirhan Sirhan and the Process Church and Charles Manson, all that kind of stuff like that. I received them from Maury Terry. And I had this stuff exclusively at one point. Nobody had it. I was the only guy who had it. And everyone who has it now, they pretty much got it from me or someone that got it from me. And I offered it to her. And she says, no, I don't want to see it because I know it's not true. The same thing with she doesn't want, you know, hearing authors and guests with theories because, you know, she knows it's not true, so you're not allowed to hear it. So, you know, I really can't respect that. You know, if you call yourself an investigator or a researcher or an author or whatever, and you don't want, you know, don't give that to me. I cannot look at it. It will fry my eyes. You know, my eyes will burn if I look at it, if I handle that document there. I don't know. That's not how I work, man. You know, if you got something, I'll take a look. Of course, you want to vet it out, you know, what's going on with it. What's the chain of custody on these documents, which is what I'm going to be doing with Ellie Leonard tomorrow. This is just how you do it, man. I don't know. That's how I do it. So anyway, she got all said, well, that's why I don't listen to your show because because I let people talk, you know. Sorry, okay. So that's another thing too. We don't censor anybody here, okay? And a lot of these right-wing guys, they can come on the show. I just had one, that Shane Cashman guy. He's a really right-wing guy with Alex Jones and Tim Pool. You can come on the show, say what you got to say. We'll talk back and forth. You know, I'm not going to give you a hard time, but some of these right-wing guys are afraid to come on the show. They're just terrified to come on the show because I'm going to hurt their feelings or I'm going to ask them a tough question, you know, ask them, you know, anyway. So I guess it's the same theory, you know, you can't, if someone has an alternate theory, and there was organized crime involvement in the JFK assassination, there's no doubt about that. You know, Sturgis was, you know, involved in all kind of organized crime activities, Sam G, you know, Traficante, you know, come on, it's all over the place, you know. You know, I'm not saying that they you know, it was only them, but, you know, obviously, you know, there was an involvement. You know, there's no doubt about that. But what are you going to do? And people are going to believe whatever they want. And, you know, run your own podcast. Do whatever you want on your podcast. I don't care. But, you know, don't tell me what to do on mine, you know. I invite people on the show. I hear what you got to say. I take down your statement. I answer some questions. Sometimes they're tough questions. Sometimes you can't answer them. Sometimes they fall apart. Sometimes I bring people on the show to allow them to hang themselves, and I just let them hang themselves. I've done it many times. And other times, you know, I'll be working on something, you know, and I'll bring somebody on the show just to ask them one question, one topic, one thing. And sometimes that will result in a huge lawsuit, okay, in a settlement. It's happened more than once. So that's just silly old Ed Opperman doing what he's doing. You know, it's you know, what are you going to do, man? Like even today when I'm talking to this Jessica, the banker involved in the Trump bankruptcy, so many times, you know, I want to say, well, you know, that's my case, that's my client. You know, I know those people, but sometimes I don't even bring that up. So damages and censorship. Okay, let's say we're doing on time. Exhausted. Okay. This is one of the big topics I wanted to talk about tonight. There's actually two. One is the situation with this DeSantis appointee who was arrested. Let me see. Michael Caruso, 67 years old. And what was he? He was appointed to what? The clerk of the courts, okay, and comptroller for Palm Beach County. All right, that's a it's a no work job. You get your title on the office there, and you do very little work. Not even very much supervision. This guy was getting $219,000 a year, so he's a long time DeSantis ally and friend and donator, donations and stuff like that. Like many others, like that fellow, I forget his name right now, the one with the shot himself out in front of the post office because there was an investigation about him giving Britney Spears tickets to his friend's daughter in exchange for nude photographs and all that stuff. And it turned out that guy had a key card access to the sheriff's department. He was in there running stuff on the computer. And he was under investigation, killed himself. Now, that guy was actually at one point a roommate with Ron DeSantis. Then you got DeSantis and Joel Greenberg and Matt Gaetz. There's a lot of the same pattern going around these characters here. There's even some allegations about DeSantis. And and also too, there was a thing back once about when DeSantis was running against Trump in the primary. I was working on another opposition research project with some people and gathering information, things like that. I mentioned some information I was working on. And Laura Loomer got wind of this and posted all over her Facebook page about how DeSantis was involved in this scandal. DeSantis had nothing to do with that scandal. The people I was talking to just got it all confused and got everything wrong. Because people are so hot and heavy about promoting themselves and propping themselves up. But it was more of this type of scandal, okay? So this fellow here, Michael Caruso, was just arrested for physically raping and molesting a 5-year-old, okay? Now, a lot of the details are, kept private. But it's a child sex abuse charges, right? Now, these allegations were in public records, public court documents, divorce documents and such, and custody documents during the period of time he was appointed. This was publicly available information. All right? And one of the things that the Opperman Investigations and Strategic Solutions is focused on is political opposition research and political candidate vetting, and also executive vetting for big companies. You want to vet your executive, their background and stuff like that. When you have a political campaign, you want to the campaign will sometimes come to me to vet their candidate. Ed, what can the other side find out about me, about my candidate, or find out about me before I decide to run for office? And then at the same time, it'll be a two-part process where you find out, well, what can we find out about my opponent that we can use against him? So the same guys, or the same team, or whatever, usually, is working both ends of that equation. And then in my case, Strategic Solutions, we can also take the next step of negotiations with the other campaign of what we're going to use and what we're not going to use. Hey, we won't talk about your affair if you don't talk about our affair. You don't talk about your Epstein Clinton Foundation. We won't talk about Epstein going to Trump Tower and being friends with Trump. You follow? This is how these things work. And I could do that part too as well. Clearly, I can investigate, and clearly I can negotiate, and clearly I keep my mouth shut too about things when I'm paid to keep my mouth shut. Okay, anyway. So DeSantis could have and should have known about these very serious allegations in this divorce paperwork, and just took a little bit of effort and says, hey, well, what's the civil, we're not going to arrest him, but what's the civil scale here, the preponderance of evidence? Is it more likely to be true or less likely to be, or is it total crap? It's just a bitter, crazy woman, wife, daughter, ex-wife, or whatever, who's making these allegations, or the child, the accusing child has all kinds of, accusing 100 people of this, what evaluate the case. I don't want to get into too much specifics, but let's evaluate these allegations and are they credible or not, which could have been done or maybe was done. But this guy was such a friend and ally of Mr. DeSantis that he just says, well, we're going to take a chance that the public's not going to find out about this, or that the charges are going to be so serious that he's going to get arrested for them. So I don't have any kind of inside information on this of how that went, but it's definitely preventable. That's for sure. I can guarantee you that this incident here, if you hired me, is preventable. Okay, we could have prevented all this. That's 100%. And then the issue of vetting out your candidate, vetting out the opposition candidate. That's all. That's all. It's not being done right now by professionals. A lot of times they get the clowns doing this kind of stuff. That have no experience in doing this kind of work. It's really a shame, especially in the Democratic Party. They're so shoveling around these contracts to their friends and to their consulting companies who hire friends, and it's all the brunches, you like to call it. They're all spending all their money on these Democratic brunches, to discuss things and sit around and drink mimosas. That's what's going on. So anyway, which brings us to the next one. I was telling my new assistant about how in the old days when I would do these solo shows, I would have an arc. I would talk about this, and I would tell a story from my life, and at the end of the story, I would say, "Well, see, and this is why." I would have an arc to the story. Well, I got a little lazy. I don't quite do the arc, but sometimes the arc falls right into place. Because talking about vetting a candidate, vetting an appointee, vetting a executive, hire, right? You want to make an executive of a company, they're going to be a public face of your company. You want them having a crazy scandal. Before I go to that, I'll tell you about George Nader. George Nader's out. Did you guys know that? Did you guys know that? Do you guys know that George Nader is out? Me, Pierce Redmond, and maybe William Ramsey. We were the first people to tell you about George Nader. Okay, George Nader, who was a Trump advisor, who was in there in a meeting with Michael Flynn and Jared Kushner and Steve Bannon. When Flynn worked for the Defense Intelligence Agency. He was the head of the Defense Intelligence Agency. And when he was in there meeting with these characters, George Nader was already served time, I think it was in the Czech Republic, but it was someplace in Eastern Europe, for actual molesting young boys. Now, talk about vetting, a candidate, an executive. Companies will vet people they're having a business meeting with. Okay, you'll vet them out and see what's their background, and especially a high level meeting like this with Flynn and Jared Kushner and Bennett. You'll vet this guy. You're going to run his criminal record to get into the White House. Everybody who goes, and when I wanted to get a picture with Ronald Reagan, they wanted my date of birth so they could run me for criminal record before I could pay $1,000 to get a picture with Ronald Reagan. Back in the 80s. Bo Dietl was going to do that for me. He was going to get me the picture because he was friends with Reagan and his daughter and stuff. But what do you call it? So they definitely did background, and plus they got all the background on the FBI, Defense Intelligence, all the CIA, to do this kind of background search on George Nader. They get his credit reports, his previous lawsuits, all this stuff. So they knew this guy was a child rapist when they brought him into the White House to have a meeting with these characters, okay? And then later on, when he was under investigation in the Mueller investigation, And they pulled him off a plane. He was on his way to Mar-a-Lago. They pulled him off the plane. They seized his phone. Then they found child porn in his phone. Now, this is you got to think, okay, they find child porn on your phone. Okay, while you're on the way to Mar-a-Lago to meet with Trump. Let's leave that out, okay? But they find child porn on your phone. And I'm not saying, by the way, I've talked about this many times in the past. I'm not saying who's delivering the child porn to Trump. I don't think that. But you got to have some serious balls to have that kind of criminal stuff on your phone. I don't have regular porn on my phone. I don't have one naked picture of anyone on my phone, not even myself. Okay? You're not gonna, on my computer, and you're not going to find any of that kind of stuff in my life. Okay? But here's this guy walking into Mar-a-Lago with this stuff. You got to pass Secret Service metal detectors and stuff. You know what I mean? That's a pretty ballsy move, man. So he gets grabbed by the Mueller guys, and he sees his phone. He had to be sitting back knowing what they're going to find on his phone. And they find his crap on his phone, and then he gets convicted. Do you know he's out already? He's out. And, damn it. I was looking up, too, where he served his time. And I think I just closed that window where I had it open. Because it did very little. No. Here's what it was. I stopped because I had a very, very busy day. But I stopped looking up where he did his time because it's impossible to find where he did his time. I was going to have to go to the Department of Corrections website and find out where he served his time because so far it doesn't show. I would guess Englewood in Colorado, which is 75% child molesters, which is a sweetheart federal detention center, not a detention center, a federal prison. That 75% child molesters and child porn in there. That's what Jared Fogle is, and it's a very cushy job joint for offenders to begin with. Bogdanovich, that guy from Chicago, that was selling the Obama seat down there. He's down there. He was there. All cushy spots, and it's pretty much run by these offenders. They say that Jared Fogle, who's getting out in a couple of weeks too, this guy's going to get out in a year or two. That he runs a gang in there. He pays off a whole group of guys that fetch things for him. Do boys, So there's no way they didn't vet out George Nader, and he's about to get out too. So this is how these things are done. Okay. So once again, DeSantis, he's got these kind of resources. Give me a break. He's the governor. Which brings us to, there's a big story in the news right now about this young lady who seems to be obsessed with Mr. Trump, Natalie Harp. She's only around 30 years old, and just 2 letters came out. From the past couple of years. I think they're from 2023, 2024. No, it had to be after 2000. Well, anyway, I'm sorry. I don't know the specifics on when these letters came out, but they just were recently. You can see that they were folded up letters, and they were smoothed out, and somebody took a photograph of these letters. And these were letters from her to Donald Trump. And they're very personal letters. And her father had some kind of business connection to Trump. Supposedly, he helped her with some kind of cancer treatment or something like that. And she feels she owes her life to Trump, this loyalty. She's obsessed with Trump. Now, the problem here is, the first problem with all this, okay, is when you read these letters, she's talking about the golf course. I didn't get on the golf cart. I didn't know what car to get on. I was over there. I didn't have my passport. So she's way over her head as having the kind of sophistication or the capabilities to be supporting and directing the President of the United States of America in his daily duties. If this is the caliber of person he has around him in such a high position, we're in big trouble. Now, I get the White House press releases every day. I get the White House press releases, and I get the White House daily briefings. I get the White House, what's it called? The White House guidance. Okay, the daily guidance. I'm working on it, dude. Give me a break, man. Let me tell this guy. Good old Ed Parnell asked me if the show's ready. And now he's going to listen to the show and hear me complaining about him. I love Ed Parnell. I love him with all my heart. He's a great guy. What do you call it? She's incredibly over her head, okay, as far as competence, experience, and maturity. Now, that's step number one, to be around the President of the United States at such a high level. Now, I get the White House daily guidance, which tells you where Trump's going to be tomorrow, what his schedule is, what his meetings are. And then also, too, the summaries, all this kind of stuff, advanced information, and then press releases and stuff. Now, normally on a normal White House, you also get them from the Vice President, the President's wife, the First Lady, the first, second lady. The Vice President's wife, you get all that stuff. But in the Trump White House, you just get Trump. It's very rare you'll hear something from Melania, or even more rare, something from Vance. It's like Vance is kept like a mushroom. So sometimes the press pool will put one or two reporters, and then the White House update it comes out from a reporter's email directly, and then you can email them back saying, hey, like I can think of one too. I wanted to find out if Biden had gone to Easter Sunday services, and so you email them, emails back, and then you wind up on these email loops. Not a lot of times now they talk about these private chat, these group chats, But the old-fashioned guys like me, you're in these email loops with emails with a bunch of reporters. I'm in email loops with private investigators, different private investigators all over the country. And, normally it's just annoying, spam, But with these press email loops, when I went searching through my files and my records on my computer and stuff like that, when I looked up this Natalie Harp, her name comes up quite a bit. Okay, the report is complaining about how much control and access she has to the president, and how she's making decisions and keeping certain people away, and people have to get in. So now I haven't gone through all of these things one by one, but she is an issue. Let's put it that way. I can personally tell you that she's an issue because I see the emails. Okay, so over her head, and a difficult person causing trouble. It seems like she had kind of a beef with Levitt, too, the press secretary, and now this guy Asso came off about her and Melania and stuff like that. Melania had to come out of the woodwork, and then she was with this whole big, which is a huge scandal. You don't hear about the catering container, that's snuck Trump and Hegseth and this young lady, Natalie Harp, off the plane, in the decoy plane with all the reporters and Mario Rubio, Mark Rubio, they're all on the plane. The one that says got the bullseye from the Iranian missiles. But this Natalie Harp, this kid, man, she's on the safe plane with Mr. Trump. And you listen to this love letter she writes to him. So my first concern here, okay, with this Natalie Harp, is one, the letter's crazy. This is, if I would get a letter from someone like this, I'd be pushing them away. Nice to know you. I get crazy emails and stuff all the time. People, for some reason, people fall in love with me. People, weird people, that I chat with them on Instagram, and then become obsessed with me. They start writing crazy articles about me. Just wild, weird people, And then, just someone, hey, you're bugging me. I can't give you the amount of attention that you need from me, so I'm going to block you. Think go your way, I'll go mine. Another guy just recently, too. Well, Ed Opperman must be a shady character because he refuses to talk to me. Give me a break, man. You're a weirdo. I don't want to talk to you. That's why. Because of what you're doing right now. That's why I'm not giving you my time. Okay? That's your conclusion. If I don't spend my time dealing with you, then I must be shady on something else. Give me a break, man. Grow up. Do what you're doing. Don't worry about what I'm doing. No one else is worried. I got a great list of clients that seem to love me and love my work and love what I'm doing. Okay, if you don't like it, don't hire me. Go away. All right, but the thing is, she writes this very obsessive love letter to the President of the United States. That's issue number 1. If Trump had any judgment, he'd be backing away from this person, not indulging them this worship from somebody. That's he's got to know that's a bad route to take. That's a rough road to go down. My second big concern about this is, how are you and I seeing these pictures? Someone that is this intimately close to President of the United States of America to see his personal mail from a fangirl, who works next to him. This is private communication between these two. Got their hands on this and photographed it. Now, one possibility is that Trump saw this and was bragging, "Hey, look at me. I'm such a stud. I got this 30-year-old little hottie here. Looks just like my daughter. Write me love letters. Take a look at this." I can see Trump doing that. But the other, and then whoever he trusted with that information showed him this letter, photographed it, or maybe Trump photographed it, and said, But what's the chain of custody now with this letter? Okay. I think it's Daily Beast, right? But it really doesn't matter the publication. Because who's in the mix with all of this? Michael Wolff. Michael Wolff, Fire and Fury. Michael Wolff, friends of Steve Bannon. Michael Wolff, friends of Jeffrey Epstein. Michael Wolff, that Michael Wolff. Michael Wolff, oh, he's a hero. He's suing Melania Trump. He's a hero. Oh, Michael Wolff is exposing Epstein's reporting on Epstein. I've been telling the world since 2018, Michael Wolff is one of them. Don't trust Michael Wolff. The Epstein people control the Epstein story, and one of them is Michael Wolff. One is a Steve Bannon. I mentioned the other ones. I don't want to keep going into, but these superstars you see, they control the story. They're all buddies with Epstein. Oh, Ed, you're so arrogant. That's stupid. Ed's crazy. He thinks he knows everything. Well, take a look. I'm always right. Okay. Michael Wolff is the source of these letters. Okay. Michael Wolff, you'll hear me interviewing people on this show, and I'll say this whole spiel about how the Epstein people control the story. And sometimes I'll mention on the air, or many more times off the air, I'll mention the whole list of names. Okay? Bannon, Dershowitz, all these people, Jeffrey Epstein's brother, why are we giving these people, elevating them to be experts on this case? Vicky Ward, friends with Epstein and Trump and Cheetah Sono. I mentioned all these people. And if the person I'm talking to is legit, they agree with me. If they don't know what they're talking about, then a lot of people have no clue what I'm talking about. But the people in the mix that know what's going on agree with me. And then I'll get some tidbits of information. Well, Ed, that's how Wolff operates. That's what he did over at this publishing company. That's how he did over at this magazine. He gossips, he gets background information on people, and he uses it within office politics to advance himself in his career and destroy other people's careers that are threats to him. Office politics. Gossipy office politics. That's this guy's specialty. That's how he gets all this information. That's how he gets all this stuff. How did he get his hands on that letter? On those letters, there's more than one. If Michael Wolff and Jeffrey Epstein, everybody says, I was telling him, Michael Wolff is friends with Jeffrey Epstein. I'm telling people. Michael Wolff is friends with Steve. Now you see the ETA files, the Epstein Transparency Act files. Oh, look at this. Michael Wolff was friends with Epstein. He was giving him advice. He was always, oh, yeah, I told you in 2018, I told you. 8 years ago, man. It's exhausting. It's exhausting. So Michael Wolff is able to get his hands on his stuff. Now, if Michael Wolff is aware of the situation, every foreign intelligence across the world is aware of this woman and her obsession and her background and what's going on in that letter. Okay? They all are. Every private intelligence organization, company, operation is aware of this, that work for these big, companies, oil companies, and these big, banking, Deutsche Bank, they all have their own private security, their private intelligence operations too, buying all this information. Okay? They're aware of all this. When when Trump was over there, I think it was the Arab Emirates, and there was a line of people walking up to him, and one of these heads of states pulled out some paperwork in his pocket and showed it to him, and people saying, "Oh, that's from the Epstein files." There's a lot of stuff besides the Epstein files that's embarrassing to Trump. Trump doesn't want this thing out there because it's going to get him in trouble with his wife. It's going to get him in trouble with his kids and get him in trouble with, with the news and the press and all this kind of stuff. It makes him look crazy, looks stupid, that he's got stupid, crazy people around him. So just like this one letter, there's thousands of things like that out there, okay? Stuff that I know about is out there, okay? What's that now? So we have an issue here. We have a weak link. Natalie Harp is a weak link. She's writing crazy letters. She's inexperienced. She's out there doing crazy stuff. And her communications with the president is loose lips. Got a problem. What's a huge, bigger problem than that is that this woman's been walking around this close to the President of the United States with no security clearance. Now, people hear that and they say, well, she's got no security clearance, but she seems like a nice person. She's probably not a Russian spy. She's not. The idiots will say, well, she's probably Mossad. She's probably KGB. Put her in there. Okay. That's one issue when you're doing security clearances on people. That's one of the issues you're looking for. Are there foreign intelligence? Are they being influenced by foreign intelligence knowingly or unknowingly? There's all kind of stupid people out there that have their best friend them doing fun things with them, and if it turns out to be that guy's manipulating them. Your handler. Like all the Twitter experts, the podcast experts like to say. Okay? So that's why you do security background clearances. You talk to their friends, their family, their neighbors. You go around, you do this stuff. Okay? A lot of people I've worked with in the past, PI work, digital forensic work, you'll get a call. They want to go work for Homeland Security. You're going to call. Hey, what can you tell us about this person? Right? What do they do for you? What do they know? Do you know if they're doing any kind of gambling, prostitution, or anything, any drugs? What do you know? And a lot of times, too, if they want to come meet you in person, you say, let's do it on the phone. It's not a big, intrusive thing, but you look for clues and you look for stuff. It's not the end, the end of the world. It's not like people think it is. I've been through a federal FBI background check, and it's tomorrow. It's not that big a deal. But some stuff's going to jump at you, glare at you. Okay, and this woman has had no security clearance. But so what does that mean? If does not have that top secret security clearance, and she should have the highest level if she's practically. She's sleeping with the president. Okay? Marilyn Monroe got killed for that. But if she's sleeping with the president, she should have a security clearance. Now, what happens when you got a security clearance and you're in this close contact with the president? All your communication devices are now secured. I saw some idiot, man, on Thread saying, no, you can't find her old Twitter account. They're all gone. Well, no kidding, man, because now she's going to go through the security clearance process. She doesn't want them seeing it. But all this time, Musk has had her stuff. Zuckerberg has had all her private communications. All that stuff, man. All that stuff. They have all that stuff. If they have all that stuff, every foreign intelligence around the world has all that stuff. Okay? If someone like this is running around, Ed Opperman can dig up. If I had the budget, to go, there's things I can know everything about her with the sources and the resources I have. 63 years old, 45 years as an investigator. Okay, so imagine what people like Musk and Zuckerberg and Bezos and the U.S. that guy from Arab Emirates, UBS, USB, whatever his name is, all that stuff. What they could be finding out. Qatar. What Qatar information has, the dirt on this. Everyone's talking about the Epstein files being used for blackmail. This guy, ladies and gentlemen, is what we have to be concerned about. If she's had no security clearance for all this time, from the day she was first photographed with Donald Trump, China, well, every country, Israel, all of them, zoned in on her. Who is she? How does she connect it to him? Look how he's looking at her. Look how she's looking at him. What do we find out about this woman? And they will insert assets and operatives into her life, into her sister's life, her father's life, her brother's life, and insert these people in as friends. Well-meaning, helpful friends, not scary people, not, hey, let's meet by the bridge and talk top secrets, comrade. No, man, they come, hey, let's have fun. Oh, I got tickets to the Super Bowl. You want to come? That's what happens here, man, guys. Okay, let's go into business together. That's what happens, okay? There's no way that hasn't happened because she's had no clearance. There's been no check. Her communication devices have not been secured. She has been provided with secure email accounts and social media accounts, and with cell phones and devices and things, computers, laptops. All of that stuff is bare and naked. Okay, and anybody can go in there and get whatever they want. That's why the Natalie, what's her name, Hart? Guys, okay? That's what's going on. That's what you need to worry about. That should be the headline. All this, ladies and gentlemen. Ed Parnell says, no problem. Oh, I went overtime, so I apologize. Ed Parnell, I love you. Guys, like I said, we have no advertising income coming in whatsoever. If you want to help us out by joining Spreaker, not Spreaker, what do you call it? If you want to help us out by joining Patreon, the Opperman Report Patreon, there is a big pile of new information that's up there this week, and we will be doing video, if not by the end of this week, definitely by the end of next week, I promise you. So you'll be able to see my happy, angry face here screaming into the phone, looking at my notes, and God, I'm going to hate doing that. Live. Maybe we can hook it up so we can take phone calls like we used to in the old days. Because we can't on Spreaker. That was a defect on Spreaker. We're not able to use that, what do they call that, studio thing at all. I'll make you a promise, man. If I get 100 new Patreon subscribers, I will hook this up that I'll do live shows on video and take phone calls. And I'll even give you a couple of extra shows during the week. How's that? I'm not for a short period of time. Not forever. All right, guys. We're out of time. I hope I got the right outro song for you. But follow me, retweet, share, all that kind of stuff. Because I need to... we got a lot going on. Love you guys.
It was just a year ago today. We made a vow to love for worse or better. You did your best, you tried in every way. Forgive me, please, for writing you this letter. It's hard to say goodbye. Western